Hi, back again. We're going to start stripping it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try stripping as much paint off as possible first using homemade paint stripper, which is caustic soda and wallpaper paste. Brushed on, given a little scrape, and then hose the most of it off. And then I shall have to sand the rest, which doesn't come off. You have to be quite careful with using, because it can burn any skin or parts. It works really good on fiberglass, because it doesn't damage the fiberglass underneath. Obviously it's going to be repainted underneath, but I'm just trying to see how it comes up with using caustic soda on it. I shall carry on and I shall let you know how it comes on. Here we are. I'll put the stripper on. Obviously the bottom half of it's going to be fiberglassed again and painted anyway. It really, I put it on, just kept it damp with the wet brush, making sure if you put it on with a brush, use a nylon type brush rather than a thistle type brush, because it'll melt it. Make sure you keep some gloves on and keep it away from your skin. It was on there for about 20 minutes. I just really went over it with a blade quickly just to loosen it up, and wiped it over again with the same stuff which was on the boats. Kept it damp for about 10 minutes and then hosed it off. I probably won't do it. I won't do it on perhaps the rest of it, but only the painted stuff, because obviously sanding it's going to have a lot better finish. And what can happen is you use it and you wet the surface too much, all the fibres stick up, which isn't really ideal to get a good finish on it afterwards. But it's going to be fine for fiberglassing over the top and painting. It cut the work down phenomenal, rather than stripping it all by hand using a hot air gun or just scraping it off. That was sort of half an hour's work, so I should keep you informed how it's coming. The actual wood's still slightly damp from when I hosed it off, making sure I got most of all the residue off, and then I should go over it with the sander anyway, and then fill any of the little holes I've come across. Well, it's mainly for the screws where the actual skin of the boat's been screwed to the rest of the inside as such. But I might as well fill them, and then that way it makes a really nice job of it. I know you don't actually see it, but it's a much more satisfying job to do it that way. Hello, we're back again. I've stripped the side as far as I can, and I'm going to. I've used caustic soda, I've rinsed it off, just using a hose pipe. I didn't want to caustic soda with some wallpaper paste to leave it on there. Put too much on there, it's going to pick all the grain up. The rest is just going to have to be sanded by hand, but obviously it will save a lot of time sanding and sanding pads as well. But obviously it needs to be dry, get the boat dry again before I can attempt to sand it. Shouldn't take too long, but as you can see, it's I've had to move the tarpaulin over the top because it's actually drizzling outside, and it doesn't make it very nice to be crawling around doing it. But it's come up with a few little surprises. The actual hole's a lot better than I thought it was. I'm not going to sheath it at all now. It's just going to be filled and sealed, and then all varnished. I don't think it actually needs it. It'll ruin. I think it could possibly ruin the boat in itself. The problem is, until you actually take all the paint off, you don't know what's actually underneath it. I was leaving it as an option. One of the options to do, but I don't think it's going to be too bad. Obviously, I've come across the original paint decor, which is underneath the other one, which is much better handwritten. And as you can see, it's actually got this inlay, bit darker mahogany to what the other part was. There is some filler and stuff tucked into the bodywork I can spotted, but what I should do is I'll have to try picking them out, actually painting them in with a brush, disguise them as the grain. It's not too bad to do. Obviously there's still quite a lot of paint on here, but that's going to have to be sanded off, because I'm not going to go too mad with stripper on it, because what will happen is all the grain will stick up, and it potentially ruin it. Oh, that's the phone. I'll just quickly walk around this way, and we'll look at it again later. Here we are again. What I've done is I've stripped as much as I can back with my homemade paint stripper. I rinsed it off with just a hose rather than anything else, because I don't want to damage the surface of the wood, but it does speed the process up quite a lot. Obviously I've done one side now already. What I'm going to have to do is I've actually gone over it slowly with a hot air gun, and actually slowly chiseled away. Oh, I tripped over something. Gone over it with a hot air gun and with a fairly blunt palette knife, and just work my way along slowly, but with the grain, taking my time, trying to avoid making any digs or anything. I mean, that little bit there probably going to take me another half an hour, 40 minutes to finish, so it's not too bad for time wise. But while you're doing it, you think, oh no, is it ever going to end? But it does, and if you're gonna, the end result will be better for doing it, rather than just think, oh, I'm gonna slap some stuff on there and paint over it again. I should do another little short video as I start sanding. You can see the difference between how it was and how it is now. It's come up pretty good actually, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think the hull generally, obviously, was never intended to be polished in the end, but I'm sure it's going to come up quite nicely with a little bit of effort. Hello. I don't know if you saw the first video. This is the I've papered most of it back, not quite finished yet, but as you see, most of the paint's all off now. It was just a case of going over again carefully to get the last few little bits off and giving it another final paper down. Then I'm going to go round and fill all the joints with epoxy filler, and then paper it down again, and then it will be epoxy sealer over it all. This is the point when you go, how far do you go when you're papering it, as far as you could go on forever. But it's come up all right. Rain's come up nicely. Last few days have been really hot. It's taken quite a lot of effort to get it back to this stage, but I'm fairly pleased with it. Hello. Oh, we've papered out, I've papered down and sanded all the odds and sods on the paint. Next job is to fill all the little nooks and crannies and holes, and then paper that all down again. It's come up quite nicely. At the moment we're still in, I think we're still going to go for varnishing the whole lot rather than painting any of it. So we'll see how that comes up.